we regretfully announce the death of President Manuel L. Quezon in New York.
Vice President Sergio Osmeña will take his oath of office as the new president of the Philippine Islands later today.
This is the voice of freedom, General MacArthur speaking. People of the Philippines, I have returned.
Suddenly, there was a deep silence. A silence that was the prelude to a glorious event. The vast, nondescript multitude was hushed and still. Out of the east came a thin wisp of cloud no larger than a man's hand. A brisk young wind from the bay came surging over the distant trees and swept the pearly cloud beyond the spectral ruins of the city. The sun was not there. Thick cumulus masses gathered and shifted and blended in never-ending succession like gray puffed sails of immaterial ships upon an immaterial sea. But the sun did not emerge effulgent, proud and swift to see the glorious birth of a nation, the calm, quiet departure of another. And the enveloping silence was so thick it was almost audible. Behind the stage was the ruined city. In front was a wide stretch of green reaching for the opalescent waters of historic Manila Bay. This was a moment of eternity. Time seemed to have paused to watch this apotheosis of democracy in the Far East. This was the culmination of the dream of one who watched us, still from his marble pedestal behind us. This was the final note of that many-centuried melody of yearning and entreaty that arose one dark morning on the beaches at Mactan, gathered force and tragic sweetness in the precipitous defile of Derad Pass, on a lonely hill at Balintawak, on a sunny patch of ground at Bagumbayan, and rolled in global thunder through the thick malarial jungles of Bataan. Here were the architects of the house beautiful of Philippine freedom. Here sat the men that planned our final emancipation from fear and want and sorrow. Here was the Knight Supreme who had come on wings of lead before his echelons of steel. He was come clothed in the fresh glory of conquest over the monster of the East, whom he had driven back to his lair in the North.
With this ceremony, a new nation is born. A nation conceived in the centuries-old struggle of a people to attain the political liberty to embark upon its own national destiny.
And here was a giant of a man with silver hair, strong-sinewed, vibrant-voiced, symbolic of the Titan nation of modern times, the United States of America.
I am authorized and directed by the President of the United States to proclaim the independence of the Philippines as a separate and self-governing nation.
And here was a brown man, a man of his people, bronzed by tropic suns, but bearing on his brow the iridescent star of the West. His was the hand that bore the torch of liberty through the dark night of our communal suffering in the shadow of the Japanese sun. In a moment, we saw a silver pole so tall, so bright, so magnificent. Then we saw Ambassador Paul Voris MacNutt, he of the silver hair, arise and slowly, gracefully, patiently topple the great American flag from the top of the pole. The United States Army Band struck up the opening strains of the Star-Spangled Banner and kept the music solemn, sweet, and sad. And we sang in our hearts, with tears streaming down our cheeks. "47 years. This was our song too. This was our flag. Beneath it, we fought the epic battles of Bataan and Corregidor. Beneath it, we felt that this was not a mere patch of tropical soil with swaying palms and tawny sunsets and silver breakers creeping on the oozing sands. This was a piece of America. This was American democracy. This was the last outpost of freedom in the Pacific." Then, the President of the new Republic of the Philippines slowly, gracefully, patiently raised the flag of the Filipinos to the top of the silver pole. The Philippine Army Band began to play the Philippine National Anthem.
Land of the morning, child of the sun returning.
As it gathered volume and reached for the climax, we intoned in silent determination, a tingling thrill running through our hearts.
Ne'er shall invaders trample thy sacred shores.
Ne'er shall invaders trample thy sacred shores. Never again, no, never again shall a foreign power set foot upon this, our hearth and home. Never shall the barbarian crush beneath his booted heel the writhing bodies of our women and children. At this point, the two flags met on the way, one going up, the other coming down. There was a brief, split-second pause. They touched each other for a fleeting instant, as if in a last caress, a last kiss. A breeze was rising from the west. It brought echoes and memories. We harked back to the dark days of 1942, when the whole world seemed crashing about our ears. We heard the voice of the American president, the incomparable Franklin Delano Roosevelt. "Your freedom will be redeemed and your independence established and protected." This was the voice that sustained us through the long, unequal fight. This was the promise that now found consummate realization and fulfillment. It was worth the sterling valor and the unspeakable sacrifice. It was worth the blood, sweat, tears, and treasure that any nation could offer upon the altar of immaculate liberty. In another moment, the American flag was folded carefully, solemnly, tenderly. At that moment, the Philippine flag, its red bar below the blue in token of beneficent and dearly bought peace at last, began to wave in the sweeping wind. The wind came in swift, low gusts. The spell was broken. Guns, big guns of the army began to bark not in accents of defiance, but in salvos of applause. A siren sounded screeching like a New Year's greeting. From 100 spires, church bells began to peal the mellow golden song of freedom. From the west came a rain-laden gale, and the long, slender crystal threads came down from the gray-white masses in the sky, as if to unravel the blending, shifting, immaterial fleece. And the rain blended with our tears, tears of joy, of gratitude, and of pride in supreme accomplishment. Above us flew for the first time, and over this embattled land, alone, happy and unperturbed amidst the sweeping gales and whipping rain, the flag of the Philippines. God, may it stay there ever, ever, ever. ever.